All right. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the different stages and phases of development and sort of therapies, treatments, interventions, and supports. And then in just a little bit, we'll move into the actual funding sources for these different interventions. Okay. In the previous section, I did mention several different organizations, and they have lots of wonderful lists of resources and therapies and things that you can do. You have options like the school districts as well. Again, if you're in the U.S., actually, if you're in many countries, I mean, the school districts care for children with autism. Special resources groups and rooms and education is not exclusive to the U.S., but it can be a challenge, and I'm speaking from experience only because the resource arenas of public education are very, very, very taxed right now with a myriad of different issues. And I even remember when my son was much younger, there weren't a ton of resources available to do actual therapeutics. They would resource room them, they'd put them all in a special room in a special area, and they would work with them and do very mild types of interventions and a little bit of speech therapy here, and tried to do some adaptive classes on learning, but they weren't doing specifically therapies. That was happening outside through the school district very, very early on before school age. They would do speech and OT. That was once or twice a week for a very limited time. So the school district is there. And of course, they do have programs for school aged kids. That is one option. If you're interested in more specific intervention to really try to get some language developed, if there is the potential for language, even if there's potential for nonverbal language, this is so important. I co-founded a therapeutics center in the state that I live when my son was young, and there were a lot of kids that were behavioral and not verbal. They were nonverbal. So we had to dive into behavioral therapy, and we had to teach sign language or forms of communication that did not require the formulation of words. And so there are so many different resources to provide, even the PECS books, being able to teach them or help them to point or make available pictures or rearrange storyboards. Again, there are a myriad of opportunities for you. If you're looking for something more specific, there are autism schools and therapy centers now that treat young children all the way through school age. So that is available in most states in the US and probably in many countries as well. So school district, and then special schools and therapies, outsourced therapies as well, speech, OT, brain gym. I mean, you name it. There are lots of different kinds of therapies, but therapy starts pretty young. The funding for therapy stops at a very specific age. So early intervention therapies typically go from about the age of 2 to about the age of 7 years old. And then they'd like to transition you into the school district. Doesn't happen quite as perfectly as that, not even close. So, but the school district certainly will take them. You can continue ongoing therapies through other schools and outsource therapeutics, no problem at all. And that runs all the way up until the age of 21 years old. And then you move into adult services. Well, actually 18, but the school district is willing to take them all the way through the age of 21. Then they're released out into the big world, and you're kind of on your own. And so that's why I got creative and co-founded another organization that does help adults with special needs, with autism and related conditions. But first things first, we want to talk about how on earth are you going to pay for all of this therapy and everything that goes with it. All right, we're going to dive into that here next.